You are warmly welcome to Steady Rise Hub channel. Subscribe, comment, like, and share our videos. In this presentation, I would like to introduce you to the topic project management. You might have read about project management for some time. When we talk about project management, what is it? What entails in project management? The learning objective of this presentation, the first is that we will come to explain what project and project management means. Also, we will identify some of the key characteristics of a project. In addition, we will identify some of the key terms that are used in projects. As project management students, you need to know some of the key words that are used in the field of projects so that you do not become new when you hear of these words. In addition, we will also consider key factors of measuring project success. After a project has been completed, you need to assess and see whether the project was truly a successful project or is a failure. And lastly, we will consider project life cycle, the phases involved in the project life cycle. So to begin with, we will start with a project. The Project Management Institute, the PMI, they defined project as a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or a result. What does this simply mean? What it means is that a project is a temporal activity. It is not a continuous activity. It is temporal activity in the sense that it has a defined period of time that it must be completed. And this activity creates a unique deliverables. What does it mean? What it means is that the outcome of every project is unique on its own. Although projects may be similar in nature, deliverables are unique. The deliverables means that the outcome of the project is unique in nature. So, in simple terms, we see that a project is a unique endeavor or activity undertaken to achieve an outcome within a defined time period and cost. So whenever the activity is started or before it even starts, before the project starts, you know the duration that it should last and also the cost that you must also incur for that project. As already said, projects have beginning and an end. Projects have a beginning and an end. It has a defined period, a defined duration that it must last. So when a project is coming to an end, it means that the objective of the project has been achieved. That is one condition that can make a project come to an end. Another condition is that when the project is terminated, what does it mean? What it means is that before the objectives can be met, the resources needed to complete the project may not be sufficient, may not be available. So the project will have to end prematurely. And in that case, the project will have to come to an end. So two conditions that bring project to an end. The first is that when the objectives of the project are met, the project will come to an end. And also the second condition is that when the project is terminated. Then what are some of the examples of a project? Can you think about any example of a project in mind? You might think of road construction. It's a project. You might also think about building construction. It can also be a project. It can also be a project that is being given to a group of people to come up with new product development. That can also be a project. And also, it can also be the project of developing a new IT software. These and many are examples of a project that you can think about. There are several of them, and I wish you can also find time to look for several examples of projects and determine whether the project was successful or it was a failure. So at the end of this presentation, you would be able to assess that particular project to see whether the project was successful or it was a failure. Then, when we talk about project management, coming to know that a project is a temporal endeavor or activity to create a unique outcome, results, or service, what then is project management? Project management is the process of the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet project requirements. In simple terms, what it means is that when we talk about project management, it involved an application of the knowledge that you have gained with respect to projects, the skills that you have acquired, the tools, the techniques that a project manager uses to ensure that the objectives of the projects are realized. That is project management. So, project management encompasses the managerial functions to ensure that you manage a project successfully. Coming to know projects and project management. What are some of the characteristics, identifiable features of a project? The first that we want to talk about is that projects are unique. Projects are unique in the sense that though projects may be similar, the outcome is different. They are unique in nature. For example, consider a construction of 1 kilometer road in the Ashanti region and also 1 kilometer road in the Greater Accra region. Though they are all 1 kilometer road, the application of project management skills and then the techniques that you will use might differ. The outcome of the project might differ in one way or the other, even though they are all unique. For example, you consider the landscape of that road. Is it valley? Is it hilly? So if it is valley, you know more effort will have to come into play to fill those valley a bit. And if it is hilly, more effort will also be needed to reduce the height of that hill to ensure that the road is constructed very well. So we can say that the outcome of the project will be different. It will be unique. The number of curves that will come in that road or that project will be different. And for that matter, the resources needed to achieve successful completion of that project will also be different. So we can say that projects are unique. The second feature or characteristics of a project is that projects are temporal. Projects are undertaken within a predefined period. So it is not a continuous or repetition action. No, it is one-time activity. Just as mentioned, projects are just one-time activity, and also the objective of the project is usually well defined. When a contractor says that he has successfully completed a project, that is a good news. But as a project manager, you need to know some of the common terms used in project management. The first term that we want to talk about is the deliverable. The deliverable simply means the output a project produces, so the outcome of the project. What is the outcome of constructing a road? In the end, you have a tiled road. That is the outcome of the project. If the project is to develop a new product to the market to satisfy customers' needs, the product that is being produced becomes the deliverable. The second term that we want to talk about is the milestones. The milestones are the dates, the timelines at which major project activities are being performed. So the major activities of the projects, at what time, at what date are they performed? That is the milestone. So when you are in projects and then you are being asked what are the milestones in these activities, then it means that the dates and time, the timelines that the major activities in the project were performed. Also, we have what we call task. So the activities that are performed during the project execution. So when you are performing the actual project itself, those activities that you perform are the task. Those activities are the task. We have the Gantt chart. The Gantt chart is a type of chart that shows time and task of a project. So it's a chart that you have the main task to be performed, and then at what period can you use to perform that task. So it's a chart that will even help you, the project manager, to know how long it can take you to complete a particular project. We also have what we call the risk in projects. It simply means the potential problems or the uncertainties that may arise from the project. So whilst undertaking the project or executing the project, there are likelihood that problems will arise. So those potential problems that are likely to happen, those are called risk. Then we have issues. When we talk about issues, is the issue is the risks that have already occurred. So whenever a risk manifests itself in a project, it causes a problem. And that is the issue we are talking about here. We have stakeholders in a project. When we talk about stakeholders, there are individuals or group of people who can be affected by the project, or individuals or group of people who can also affect the success of the project. So their interest need to be considered all the time because they can affect the success of the project. So project managers need to engage key stakeholders to ensure that they have positive impact on the project. When a project is being completed, the project manager try to assess the success of the project, or the project sponsors. When we talk about project sponsors, the individuals who own the project, it can be a group of people who own the project. They are the people who conceived or conceptualized the project. They may determine whether the project was a success or a failure. But to be able to do that, certain key factors need to be assessed. So what are the criteria that can be used to be assessed whether a project was successful or not? In fact, project ranges from simple to complex. Some projects are straightforward, can easily perform it within a predefined time, shortest possible period of time. Some can take longer, but still, it is still time bound. It is not a continuous activity. Some are also complex in nature, especially when it comes to the development of IT softwares. Usually, they are complex. So, when a project is to come up with an IT development or ICT projects, usually they are complex in nature. So, to measure the success of a project, managers usually apply what we call quadruple criteria. The quadruple criteria, the first is time or schedule. The second is budgets. Then we have performance and we have client's acceptance. Let's take them one by one. Time or schedule. Projects are being constrained by a specified duration. So, as stated earlier in the introduction of this presentation, projects are temporal. They have beginning and an end. So projects work within this time frame. And because of that, if a project goes beyond a specified time, the project is a failure in terms of time. So project must be completed according to the estimated time. So if the project goes beyond ahead of time, the project is a failure in terms of time. So a project, as mentioned, they have beginning and an end. So if it ends within the estimated time, then the project is a success. To clarify this, a project can be completed within the budget. Client accepts it. Performance is okay. But when it comes to time, if the project was supposed to be completed in 6 weeks and then it took 7 weeks or more than 6 weeks to be completed, the project is a failure in terms of time, not in terms of cost, performance, or client acceptance, but in terms of time, the project is a failure. I hope it is clear now. Let's move on to the second determinant of a project success, that is budget. In fact, every project is also constrained with budgets, and projects are being undertaken according to predetermined cost estimation. So there are various ways of estimating project cost, and after project cost has been estimated, it is expected that the project should be completed within the cost. It shouldn't go beyond the cost. So to ensure that this is realized, there should be an efficient utilization of resources. So you don't bring in more people when the activity to be performed requires less people. And then you don't bring in less people when the activities require is more people. It will delay the work. So the efficient utilization of resources will make sure that cost will be in its boundary and time will also be in its boundary. So as a project manager, you do ask yourself, was the project completed within budgets? If yes, then the project is successful in terms of budgets. Another criteria that we want to look at is performance. Performance. In fact, before the project can be started, there is a predefined specification that has been drawn that the project should accomplish. If the project is able to meet that specification, is able to conform to that specification, then the project is successful. For example, if there is a project to produce a device that can be used for making a call and text messaging, and then that project has been started by a team of people. In the end, the device was created. You can call, talk to someone, you can test the person can also test you back. We can see that this project is successful because it has been able to achieve the purpose. The purpose is to come up with a device that can make a call, get in touch with someone who is not closer to you. But if the device, in the end, it cannot make a call, though it was completed within time, within the budgets, but this project is a failure because it didn't meet specification. So this third criterion that we are talking about, performance here, is like you conducting the quality check of what has been completed. So you need to check whether it conforms to requirement. Then the project becomes a success. The fourth and the last of the criterion is client acceptance. You see, projects are being constructed or performed according to customers or clients' needs. So we have customers' needs in mind all the time. So when products are developed, it should meet the expectation of client. It should satisfy the customer's needs. So if the project deliverable is not able to satisfy customers' needs, then it is a failure. So whenever the project is completed, and then before completing the project, we had a customers in mind, what should we do? You should find out from them or the customers that whether they accept the project. If yes, customers are happy about the product, yes, it testifies that it is acceptable and it is a success, not a failure. So we have talked about the quadruple criteria for assessing the success of a project. We talked about schedule, that is time. We talked about budgets, we talked about specification, and then we talked about client's acceptance. The last thing that we want to consider in this presentation is the project life cycle. When we talk about the project life cycle, what is it? The project life cycle is the stages in the project development. So from the time you conceive the idea of the project to the time that the project comes to an the cycle that it goes through, that is the project life cycle. So life cycles are important because they demonstrate the logic that governs a project. So what does this mean? What it simply means is that the project life cycle, if you are undertaking a project and then you know a particular stage that you are in, it will help you, the project manager, to know what kind of decision you should do. You know that there is more effort required at the planning and then the execution stage of every project. So you devote so much time and effort to ensure that the project is defined very well, planned very well, and then during the execution time, you will know that at this time of this project, less work is needed. So if less work, that means less employees, less human resource. If it is more work, that means more human resource will be needed. But if it is not planned, you will not know the logic or the systematic way of managing your resources to achieve the objective of the project. The life cycle also helps the project manager to develop plans for carrying out the project very well. So it will help the project manager to know what to do at each point in time. They also help the project manager to decide when he should devote resources to the project, how to evaluate the success or the progress of every activity that is being undertaken. So the life cycle really helps the project manager to take good decisions to manage the project very well. The project life cycle include 4 different stages. The first is the conceptualization stage, second planning stage, the third execution stage, and the fourth evaluation stage. Let's take them one by one. Conceptualization stage. You remember I talked about project sponsors. They are the persons or the person who own the project, who conceives the project, the originator of the project. So at this stage of it is the development of the initial goal and then the technical specification for the projects. So the project sponsors together with the project manager will come up with the need to identify the need. So before the need can also be identified, Remember, we talked about client acceptance. Projects are being undertaken with the client in mind. So it is performed, projects are performed to satisfy clients' needs. So the conceptualization comes all the way from identifying client needs, and then we undertake a project to satisfy those needs. So you should be able to identify the needs of clients, and afterwards you'll be able to identify the scope of the work. You determine it, the necessary resources that you will need, the people, whether financial or physical plans, equipment, tools. You also identify them at the conceptualization stage. And also, key stakeholders should also sign on. They need to approve it. Remember, we have stakeholders, but some of them are key. You cannot do away with them. You need to involve them in the project. Else, you start the project, but you will not finish it. So we have a lot of failed projects all around because stakeholders did not accept it. So it is very important to take the conceptualization stage very serious. The second stage that I want to talk about is the planning stage. The planning stage, it is the stage in which all detailed specifications, the schematics, the schedules, and other plans are developed. So at the planning stage, you look at the detailed specification. So the conceptualization stage, you took the overall specification, but at the planning stage, you take everything into details. So the specification, the schematic, the schedules. The schedule, if it is a building that you want to put up, you start from the beginning of the building. You clear the land, the foundation, the resources that will have to go down to ensure that everything is in order. You plan everything using, you can even use the Gantt chart to know when each activity or each task is to be performed and at what time period is it expected to be performed. So the work packages or the individual work pieces of the project are broken down. So the overall project is broken down into manageable sizes. So you develop the work breakdown structure, how each activities will be broken down to ensure that you get to the minimum level, knowing each resources that will be required at each point in time. At the planning stage, the team identifies all the work to be done. So the work breakdown structure will help you know all the works that needs to go in there and to make the project a success. At the planning stage, the project tasks and resource requirements are identified and then the strategy for producing them. So we mentioned about the task, the activities that needs to be performed during the execution stage. They are all identified. The resources that you will need to meet the project goals are also identified. What are the tools that you will need? The techniques that you will also apply, the knowledge that you have gained. What would you do to ensure that you implement them successfully to achieve a successful project? At this stage, you come to realize that some of the activities of the project are dependent on each other. So at this stage, you try to define and outline the activities, the tasks, the dependent and independent task, and then the time frames. And it will help you develop your Gantt charts. The third stage is the execution stage. The execution stage, that is the stage where the actual work, the actual project is performed. So the actual project that you want to do, that is when it is performed. So during this stage, the project team, they engage themselves on the field. They are active in performing the work. And it is important to maintain control and to communicate as needed during implementation. One key factor when it comes to project success is communication. In fact, communication is the backbone of the success of a project. If you fail to communicate with your team, there will be no flow of information. And it is information that will help a project manager know what to do at each point in time. Those on the ground give information to the project manager, and the project manager also communicates with those on the ground, the team, the labor, so that they can work hand in hand. So at the execution stage, information should be communicated most often. And at this stage too, people are carrying out the task, and the progress information is being reported through regular team meetings. So at the execution stage, there should be regular interaction, regular discussion meetings, so that the project manager knows what to do at each point of that stage. Each project deliverable should be reviewed for quality and measure against acceptable criteria. So as the project execution moves ahead, there should be a quality check at each point in time, so that by the time you finish the whole project, the quality is measured up to standard. It's not when you are done with the whole project that you come and then make the quality check. What about if there is a problem? If you are building a story building and then the first floor or the ground floor, there was a problem, do you have to collapse the building and then put up another one? So it will be a challenge. So the moment you start, you need to do quality checks throughout the execution stage to ensure that the project is well achieved. The closing stage or the closure stage, that is the last stage or the termination stage. Projects are closed when the objectives are met. So when you are able to complete a project, you close it because you have met the objectives. So the final closure stage, the following activities are present. So the project deliverables or the project deliverable is released to the customer or the sponsor, the project sponsor. You hand over project documentation, you terminate every supplier contract, you release the resources of the project, and then you communicate the closure of the project to all key stakeholders. And with that, you can call it that, yes, you have brought it to an end. But that is not all. There's one thing at the closure stage that needs to be talked about, and that is to conduct lesson learned reports to examine what went wrong and what did not. The lesson learned report is a report that gives you an overview of everything that happened during the project. So when in the future a similar uh, project is being undertaken, you can refer to that lesson learned reports and know that, oh, this is what's happened when we were undertaking this project. So it's likely we will also face these risks and other things that benefited the project. So the lesson learned report is very, very key. Very, very key. It will help you, the project manager, to also know what you could have done better so that next time you can also improve on your capabilities. Thank you for your time. Remember to subscribe, to comment, to like, and share our video.